1980s, Latin America was boiling. Dictatorships were falling, fragile democracies were emerging, and young people were hungry to express themselves. Rock found its voice, and its capital was Buenos Aires. There, three young musicians decided they wouldn't imitate anyone. They would sound like themselves. That's how Soda Stereo was born. Gustavo Cerati was a student of advertising and a fan of the Police and British rock. Zeta Bosio came from the punk underground with the soul of a bassist and a sharp ear for innovation. And Charlie Alberti, the youngest, was a self-taught drummer with an elegant yet precise style. When they met, the chemistry was immediate. They not only shared influences, but a vision to make rock that was modern, stylish, and uniquely Latin American. At a time when Argentine bands were still singing in English or stuck in old formulas, Soda Stereo brought something new, a crafted image, poetic lyrics, polished sound, and, above all, attitude. In 1984, they released their self-titled debut album, with songs like Por qué no puedo ser del jet set and Dietetico. They made it clear they weren't here to repeat the past. But it was Nada Personal, 1985, that changed everything. Cuando pase el temblor, with its fusion of rock and Andean rhythms, echoed across the continent, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Venezuela. Cerati's voice had become instantly recognizable. His hair, his stare, his Stratocaster guitar. He had become an icon. Soda Stereo was one of the first Latin bands to truly understand the power of the music video. Their clips weren't just visuals, they were artistic statements. Cerati, influenced by Bowie and conceptual art, oversaw every detail. And it showed. In a time without social media, image still had mystique, and Soda Stereo embodied that: mystery, style, beauty. In 1986, they released Signos, featuring classics like Persiana Americana, Prófugos, and Signos. It proved they weren't a passing trend. They were a creative force. Their tours became massive, their audience continental. For the first time, a Spanish-language rock band created a phenomenon on par with global rock stars. But Cerati was never one to settle. He wanted more sound, more exploration, more depth. That led to albums like Doble Vida, 1988, produced in New York, and Canción Animal, 1990, arguably their most visceral work. It included De Música Ligera, Te para tres, and Un Millón de Años Luz, songs that still echo at festivals, on playlists, and in memory. As with all intense stories, it had to end. In 1997, after years of pressure, touring, and internal tension, Soda Stereo decided to part ways. They did it with a massive farewell tour, ending in a historic concert at River Plate Stadium. That night, before playing the last chords of De Música Ligera, Cerati spoke the phrase that lives in millions of hearts: Gracias totales. Then came the silence. Each member took his own path. Cerati dove into his solo career, continuing to explore music with the same passion. But the Soda legend only grew. New generations discovered them. Old fans never let go. In 2007, a decade after their goodbye, they reunited for a tour titled Mi Verás Volver. It was a continental celebration, proof their music was still alive. And then came the blow. In 2010, during a tour in Venezuela, Cerati suffered a stroke that left him in a coma. He remained that way for 4 years. On September 4, 2014, he passed away. He was 55. The news shook the continent because Cerati wasn't just a musician, he was an electric poet. a generational voice, a symbol. Soda Stereo wasn't just a band, it was a sonic and aesthetic revolution. They changed how Spanish language rock was played, produced, and seen. They opened doors, inspired thousands, and left behind music that never ages. Today, decades later, when you hear Zoom or Nada Personal, time stands still. Because some bands make history, others turn it into art. Soda Stereo did both, and their echo still hasn't faded.